Hi, guys, and welcome to Naked with Angie podcast. Today we're getting naked with Ava. Ava and her sister recently started a podcast too. It's called the Sexy Time Podcast. And well, the main topic is, I'm guessing, sex. Do you want to
Exactly.
tell us more about
like your podcast, the title kind of says it all. We created this podcast to just really get people to start talking about sex. In the Philippines, people just laugh every time you say, like, you can't even say the word sex, right? And it's just so common in the culture. So our mission really is to get people talking about it and realize that it's normal. It's okay to talk about sex, nothing to be ashamed. Everyone has the right to pleasure. And yeah, it's been so much fun since we started this podcast. And I love the name of your podcast too, the Naked Podcast. There should be visuals accompanied by it.
We can work on that later. I listened to your podcast, but while I was getting ready, the one with your mom, and
oh my gosh. We had to launch with an episode with my mom because we were thinking, like, okay, we had a couple episodes lined up, but we were thinking the one with my mom just made us feel awkward and cringy, and that's what we wanted to launch with, for people to be like, what is this? But then want to keep listening. And true enough, it was really good feedback. Of course, my mom's also she's such a character. She's a personality here in the Philippines, and she's like an icon for some people. So then for us to be talking to her about these things, for your listeners, my mom's the first Philippine Miss Universe. So she's like a womanly icon to Filipinos, right? But I mean, to be discussing topics so taboo such as sex, I think caused a lot of, interest, and a lot of people reacted like, first of all, it's coming from her. Second of all, who really talks to their parents about things like that? But surprisingly, I don't think it's anything new to us because my mom's weird like that. But yeah, a lot of people were saying we're inspired to talk to our parents like this. Yeah.
I personally can even imagine talking to my mom about sex because
really?
I got nothing from
Does she know about your podcast?
No, she's Russian, so she doesn't speak English. I think she knows. I don't know. Like she watches my
amazing.
YouTube videos.
It's good that so that's your way around it. So you speak English and she doesn't understand. If I were, I'd have it translated.
No, I was thinking about that when I was like, no, I don't want to. Because you've seen my Instagram, right? Like the photos I post.
Yeah.
And I mentioned something about the photos and the feedback some people tell me about them. And she was like, what photos? Why am I still not on Instagram? And I'm like, Mom, you got to learn. I'm not going to teach you.
Sorry, you have to work for it. I get that.
Yeah. No, I think you talking to your mom. How old is your mom?
My mom is 70, actually. So she was the first Filipino Miss Universe in 1969. And, a lot of people think like that age gap it would be pretty common. Like for someone who's 40 years older than me, it's hard to communicate these things. But what I liked about her is she used to be very conservative. She got into movies and like she has like love scenes and she has to kiss people. And, I think that kind of opened her eyes up to a lot of things. And I think she got more comfortable talking to us about it. Like we'd watch movies and she's like, in bed with a guy. And like in the beginning, it was like, this is weird, right? But then after a while, it's like, okay, wait, this is actually her career, her job. And she got comfortable talking to us about it because she wanted to make sure. The one thing that I always hear my mom say is like, I want you to be protected and make sure you know what you're doing. So she's always telling me, the moment she meets a guy, she's like, you better be on the pill. Like she doesn't even know his name yet. So she's different like that. But I think it's cool to learn from that. How's your mom like? Like, how is it like in Russia? What's the culture like?
I would say similar to the Philippines because I didn't get a sex talk educational ever like from no one. Yeah, I kind of learned by
By
doing.
yourself? So where did you learn? Like watching porn, talking to
Uh,
friends?
you know what? I think it's like similar to the Philippines as in Russian culture. It's actually like taboo, or maybe now it's better. But like when I was growing up, it's actually funny because I don't remember talking to my mom about it, or like I know she didn't give me the okay, you have to be safe when you're like. I think she was hoping that I
You
never
just
will.
know. Yeah.
No, no,
Some people
never
are
will
just in
start.
denial, like she's never gonna do it.
Yeah, but then I learned from like childhood friends that I was the one when I was 7. I told them what sex was, and I don't remember it. I like, what did I say?
So it's innate in you, actually.
Yeah, I think because I was curious,
Yeah.
and I was just I don't know. I also like a weird flex from my stepdad, but he told me that I walked in on them having sex. But I
Okay.
was sleepwaying as a kid, so I don't remember.
So you
that.
don't
So
remember. Thank God.
yeah,
It's
my
not
psyche
scarring.
protected me.
Yeah. Like your sleep. That's so funny. I mean, you know what we talk about? One thing we talk about in our podcast is like exposure to sex and sexuality at such a young age. You don't know what to make of it, right? And like I was sharing, the first time I ever felt aroused, I was like 5, and I was watching something and I didn't understand, and I told my cousin, like, I feel tingly, and I didn't understand what it meant. But then and you don't have adults to teach you, like, what do you say, really? Like, how do you explain that to a 5-year-old without seeming perverted? So there's so many things that I want to learn, which is why we get like these experts that come on and tell us, like, okay, when you're dealing with a kid, it's good that you refer to private parts by their actual names. You don't, in the Philippines, people say like they have different names for it, like pototoy or puwet, stuff like that. But people just say, you should refer to it as these are your breasts, this is your butt, or this is your vagina. And it doesn't add a perverted, how do you say, like connotation or something to it. So then it's very factual and it's educational. It's for their own, how do you say, how they perceive these things. And you put an underlying perverted tone to it, then it becomes perverted, right? Those are some
I
of the
also
things that I'm learning.
I also quite recently learned that childhood or like children sexuality is a thing, and you can like experience a little bit, like not the same as adult sensations, but starting from like a very young age, like 5 years, and then like you said, a tingling sensation, and then sometimes you will notice kids like touching themselves or like playing
Oh yeah,
with
yeah,
their
yeah. I agree.
parts. And then I think the way you react to it as a parent is very important, because like when you say like don't touch it, don't play with it, you're like, why, what am I doing wrong? I
Yeah,
don't
you
even know
don't
what it is.
know. Exactly. Yeah. That's also a really interesting thing that I learned, because I see it so often in the Philippines. Like moms are like, "Don't touch that." They're like, "Huh? Why?" That's a good point. Yeah.
I think it's important for your mom to be doing this podcast with you, because like she still has fans from her age group, right? So I think if they still follow her career, or like they got curious about the podcast and they heard her perspective, I think it's opening the audience up more to, better perspective, or like a broader view
Yeah.
on things.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, it's also the reason why we wanted to launch with her, because it's like sexuality is formed from when you are young. Like from when you're young, your perception on yourself, your identity, your sexuality is formed from the moment, you're born, and years 1 to 7 are the formative years. You figure out who you are. And I think a parent has a big role in that. When it comes to my mom's audience, I don't think they're the type who listen to Spotify podcasts, but I think their kids are, and I think I would think that it were the kids who would bring it up, like who would be like, listen to this. And yeah, I agree. Like I like the whole movement of being more open in terms of communicating with your parents, because who better to teach you, right? You know they have the best intentions, and they probably have the experience to tell you. Although it depends. Some are a bit close-minded. Who knows? It's different. Right?
Yeah, I think just because they had sex and conceived you makes them an
They know
expert. Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if the culture or the view on sex was different. Like what you said, conservative.
Exactly.
Right? So what are you going to teach it? Like you only need to please your husband and sex is not for pleasure.
I know. So there are surprisingly there are so many people who have emailed us telling us, like so many are so scared because they don't know how it is. We got like maybe 10 emails of people who are newly married and they've never engaged in the act because they're so afraid of what to expect because they don't know what to expect. They don't even know how to start. And I think it's a lot of it has to do with they were never exposed or no one ever brought this to their attention. Like, this is what happens and this is what you do to prevent it. You can check yourself like this. So there's so many things for them to learn. It's almost like, how do I even begin? But it's not like, I'm not saying that I know everything. I actually don't. That's the reason why we started the podcast. That's the reason I wanted to do this with people. Like, I wanted to learn things and have people be there learning with me. We recently released a podcast with this bondage dominatrix girl named Joyan, and it was such an interesting podcast because so she's like the queen of rope, and she's like one of the most highly respected bondage dominatrix lady. Like, and people all over the world sign up to be her submissive, and you can't just sign up and she'll automatically get you. She has like hundreds and hundreds of people applying, and they have to write like a formal application letter, and then they have to send in they answer like these questions. It's steps. So there's like a, how do you say, like a procedure to it, and I find it so interesting. And she just talks about how bondage isn't about like being kinky and perverted. It's just relearning what you've it's unlearning what you've already learned and relearning how to play. I mean, she said it much better, but it all boils down to like learning how to play in the bedroom. And that doesn't make you perverted. It just like, you learn how to spice things up, do things differently, which I really, really liked. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know about the procedure, but I'm not sure about the sex work situation in the Philippines. I think it's also a measure for her safety, that she doesn't just take anyone.
Definitely. Actually, she was telling me like prior to the pandemic. Okay, when the pandemic happened, she was having the internet became a lot stricter with her work, so she would get blocked a lot of times. And yeah, that's definitely a protocol for her so that she doesn't meet up with a creepy guy. So what she does first is she meets up with someone in a very neutral zone. She talks to them about like, what are your expectations? Who's going to be part of this? And it's a very, very like a job interview almost. And if she sees that they're fit, then she'll move forward and they plan it somewhere safe and all of that. But if she doesn't see it fit, she'll reject their application and move on. So it's actually really crazy different world out there. And I personally, I'm not yet, I'm just trying to understand it. But she definitely gives me a better view on it. I used to think it was just like kinky and perverted and like, these are just horny people, but not at all. Actually, it's like an art to it. It's really cool.
I was going to say something. I forgot what it was. Oh,
you want to try it? Just kidding.
Do you want to try?
Open.
There is a series on Netflix that's called Bondage, and it's called kind of about this line of work.
Oh, really? I saw the ad, but I haven't seen it. You watched it?
It's actually it's
up to date.
Cool. It gives you some perspective, but I heard not all of the sex workers who are in the same area of expertise were happy about it because of the way they portrayed it. But I think, I don't know, it was fun for me. It was entertaining. It was
I need to
educational.
Watch it. I want to ask her what she thinks about it.
That could be a good question.
Yeah.
But I think what they just gave a little bit of, perspective into what it looks like.
I could imagine. Like, It's hard also because it's such a dynamic job. Like, aside from being this bondage dominatrix, she's actually really cool, and she's so, I mean, she's so wise, and she had so many things like words of wisdom or things for us to take away. And you know, the truth is, when you talk to someone who's classified as a sex worker, you can't help sometimes but think like, oh, my judgmental is they couldn't, you know, they couldn't find any other job, or like, you know, there are so many stigmas that are attached to it. But when you speak to her, she's like, no, this is an art form that I've come to love. She's well educated. She's awesome. And then you have a different perspective of things. And it's like, okay, wait, who am I to judge these people when everyone has different backgrounds, right? So it's pretty cool. I'll definitely watch that tonight.
That's actually that's actually true what you said. It's like there's so much stigma around it, and there's like people are so judgmental. But what I found interesting and kind of funny, that the Philippines is such a conservative country, yet I think a couple of years ago it was listed as the first country on Pornhub.
Oh, number one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's one of the reasons also that we wanted to start the podcast, because it's like everyone's doing it. Our country is over 100 million people. For sure, people are having sex. No one's talking about it, and we can see it in like when you release the podcast. I didn't expect the listeners to be that many, because you know I didn't understand what to actually expect. But I'm slowly realizing, I think a lot of Filipinos want to listen. They want to listen secretly. And then slowly we're getting more and more emails. Now we're getting like almost hundred of emails and DMs of people really opening up about their situation. And I love it because they feel that it's really a safe space that they can message and just open up about their situation at home and all that. And it's really just my sister and I replying. Like, even the team we work with, they don't open the messages. So I think we need podcasts like yours and mine to just start that whole trend of people knowing like it's okay to ask these things. You can find out and like prevent worse things, right? I agree with you.
Yeah, I think it's just because it's forbidden, or is it tied to being sinful?
Yeah.
It doesn't help to like you're naturally curious. It's like deny me, or like tell me that I don't know, it's illegal to drink orange juice. I will want orange juice. Like,
right, you
like
always
that.
want
like,
what they tell you can't have. It's human nature, right?
It's like people get curious and they don't know who to ask, because before that there weren't many educational podcasts or anything they could resort to. Now it's like better, but still, like, you don't go to your parents. I don't know the situation about schools, but most schools don't have that, aside from like a biology class that's like when you're 12, 13, you're like,
ours
okay,
is
this
like,
is a human
15.
body.
Ours is 15. I'm like, okay, we've already grown into our boobs at this point. Like, we don't even understand, you know, they take so long. Although I'm hearing here in the Philippines, they're trying to pass this new thing of actually teaching sex ed in the curriculum. I don't know when it's going to come out, but we spoke to a guest who was part of the whole movement, and she said that it was approved, which is exciting. That's one step closer.
You know what? That reminded me, I was shocked when I learned last week that consent age in the Philippines used to be 12 until like September.
Wait, can you explain what you mean by consent age?
So like, you can have sex, or like it's, I don't know how to phrase it. So it's like okay to have sex with like a 12-year-old.
Okay, so it's like if a 12-year-old says yes to having sex, it's not statutory rape, because at 12 she's legally allowed to make her own decisions.
So. But I think that I'm not sure. So,
okay.
like, what baffled me is that like all of the work, I think maybe it's like protected by law, as in maybe if you get raped or something, or like maybe an adult wants to have sex with
like a minor?
Yeah.
That's insane.
I don't know. Yeah, I was like, what, 12? That's they changed
insane.
it to 16.
Okay. Thank God, because I never knew that. I never knew that. At 12 years old, you can barely make your decision of what to eat. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I'll clarify that.
Yeah. That was, you should, if you guys are listening to this, you should do your research, because
Yeah.
I was just,
Make sure.
I saw it and I was like, wow.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. 18 makes sense. 16, yeah, I get it. But I think even at 16, well, maybe 16.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you questions.
Sure.
My audience asks me all the time.
Sure.
Because it's 95% male.
Oh, your audience is 95%. Ours is actually majority are female, like 21 to 35-year-olds. Yeah, I think it's like people who are like us who want to learn things. You know what's interesting? When I was talking to another sex therapist who has her own podcast, majority of her audience is male. So I think it's like for people, I think it depends really on the content you put out, what type of people you attract. That's really cool. Okay, go ahead. What are the questions?
Well, what was your first experience like? Age, was it good or bad? How did it go?
You mean,
was it
like our sexual experience? My first sexual
if you don't feel comfortable with any of the questions, you can.
Sure, don't worry, I'll tell you. My first one, truthfully, for me, I would think I was 17. It wasn't what I always wanted it to be. In fact, I was like I was drinking. It wasn't someone I really liked. It wasn't what I always wanted it to be. You know, you always you want to lose it to someone. Yeah, so it wasn't amazing. But then again, I didn't allow it to define me, and I also was like, you know what, I can move on. I'm just gonna learn from that. It sucks that it's my memory, but I don't feel bad about it because it's also a good friend. And yeah, I don't let it affect me. I actually haven't thought about that in so long. Thanks for reminding me.
You're welcome. Yeah, I also want to talk about being still, a developing teenager and kind of feeling that you have to have sex, or because that's how I remember my first time was. I was 16 and it was my boyfriend, but we were dating for like 2 months, and of course, like he was 1 year older than me, and of course, like horny teenage boy, like wants to have sex,
raging hormones.
Yeah, and then I just wasn't ready, or like I didn't want to, and then I felt pressured to have sex because we were dating. And for me, can you imagine? For me, that time, I thought, well, we're already dating for 2 months. It's long enough to have sex. Like, 2 months, and I didn't want to. I felt like pressured, and I don't know. It's like I don't think of it as like super bad experience, but I think that's something that I could learn from. And
I know it's real. That really happens to people, because like it's just peer pressure, and you peer pressure yourself, really.
Yeah.
No one's. I'm not sure if your boyfriend was forcing you, but it's more like unspoken feeling of like, let's just do it, right?
Yeah.
I get you. It's kind of
he was kind of like pushy, but not rapey.
Okay, yeah. That unclear boundary.
Yeah. So I think if someone younger or inexperienced are listening to this podcast, especially girls, I would say that don't ever feel pressured by any circumstances, or because your boyfriend will reject you, or like you will be seen as bad girlfriend or something.
100%. Like if there's one thing that I feel like listening to that, I actually want to tell people, like, it's so much more empowering to be like, sorry, I'm not ready now, and I'll tell you when I'm ready. And you just get back that power, rather than, okay, let's try. And then the experience is kind of just like, is it that? Like, I mean, I'm a hypocrite because of what I did. But if I could go back and tell my 17-year-old self, I would have said that. I totally agree with you. Sucks, right? I mean, that's also why we did an episode on consent, because consent is such a, how do you say, it's like such a blurred topic, because sometimes you don't know if you're actually consenting to something, or like you said, you're just peer pressured or pressuring yourself into peer pressuring. And one of the things I learned from the guest is there are 5 ways to the criteria of consent. It's called fries, like French fries. F is freely given. So you freely give your consent. R is reversible. So you can be in a situation, be like, okay, well, let's have sex, penetration. And then halfway through, you realize you're not ready. You can say, okay, wait, I'm going to go back. I don't want to do it. I changed my mind, which is something that we are all blown away from, because we also didn't realize, because sometimes you're like, shucks, I already gave it. I feel bad if I take it back. Right? You know what I mean?
But I already said yes.
Yeah. And now I'm flaky.
No, and then like the partner would be doing the same thing, but you already said yes.
Exactly.
You already agreed, and then
that's why it's important to clarify that it's reversible. The I is, let me think, freely given, reversible. Wait, I want to get it, because it's so important, and I think it's really important that we tell people as well. The I is informed, and informed basically means like everything that's going to happen. An example would be like your boyfriend says, let's go to bed, and you're like, okay, but you don't realize that he's going to maybe put it up your butt, or like anal. He'll be like, but you said yes, but you weren't informed that that's what he had in mind. So you need to be informed. E is enthusiastic. So you can't so when you say yes, it has to be an enthusiastic yes rather than a lackluster yes. Like, oh yeah, sure. Like what you were saying, like, okay. So that's not really consent if someone was like not really excited about it. Although we did say there are some exceptions, like, when you're with a partner and you've been together for so long and sometimes you're so lazy to do it in bed and you're like, fine. I mean, that's still,
but
that's the gray area.
While you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Sound from experience. Just kidding. And then the last one is S, which is specific. You need to be specific about what you're consenting to. So yeah, that's the criteria she gave us. And her name's Amina Swanepoel, and she leads this organization called Roots of Health. And it's just so many things that we learned from her. And I was so thankful she defined what it meant to give consent. Right? Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I feel like this leads to another important topic, the communication in relationship and in having sex as well, even if it's, not a long-term relationship, which is, I think, totally fine. It's like there's this stigma that you meet your person, you're bound to stay with them forever and only have sex with them.
Yeah, I totally get you.
Yeah. So, how easy was and is for you to communicate your needs, or like tell your partner that you want a specific thing, or like you want to try something new? And how easy was it for you to voice your?
Definitely not. It still is a struggle. I mean, even since we started this podcast, I've seen myself improve, but I'm definitely not where I want to be, because I am guilty of having that Filipino mentality of being afraid or ashamed of saying what I want and then kind of being judged for it. Although my husband's super, super chill. Like, he's not the type, like, if I say something, he's like, sure. But then I also just kind of set myself up for that. But I do think that one thing that's helped me a lot, that I learned also from speaking to people, is like, maybe after you guys are doing something and he does something you like, for example, like, let me say, tickle your ear, something like that. It's good to give positive reinforcement, like, hey, I liked when you did that. Because it's like a subtle way of telling him, like, next time, do it again. I'm still there. I'm not yet at the point where let's use a dildo. Some people like are there already. And I don't know if I'm going to get all the way there, but I'm definitely open if there comes a time where we want to spice things up more, you know. But communication is something you constantly have to work on, even when you're married. And I think it's even harder when you've been married for like 20 plus years, at least from the people that I talk to, because then you've fallen into this like cycle, like, oh, we already know each other, we know what we want. But then really you realize that you're growing into different directions. So I love I love that you bring it up, because it's definitely something I think, especially for guys, your listeners that are listening, like I rarely ever hear stories of guys being the first to initiate like the communication side to sex, right? And it would be so refreshing to have that. What do you think about that?
I think it's important, and I think I certainly, again, like the lack of sex education, and that it's okay to tell your partner that what he's doing doesn't give you any joy or pleasure, that he needs to stop doing that, or like instead you're just like squirming.
I know, I totally get you.
It's what they say. If you don't tell them, how will they learn? Especially like, for example, if a guy goes down on you and he's like not doing. Oh, I've had like such bad experience with like one particular person. He sucked so like. I mean,
what did you say?
Like, he was so bad. I was just like, I pushed his head away from me.
You're like no, like this. Just kidding.
He kept trying and trying. I'm like, you're not good at this. No, I didn't say that. But no, I didn't say it.
Let me communicate this with you. How do you teach them what to do then?
I would say like, I hope for the best. No, I usually... No, I learned like over the years to tell them how I like it and what I like, because it's hard for me to have an orgasm just from the penis.
Yeah.
Penis.
Like penetrating.
Yeah, just from penetrating. So I prefer fingers.
Yeah.
And at some point I will say that, or they will figure it out, that I actually like, okay, so I don't know if we're allowed to say that because it's on YouTube. Like, I like fingering more than actual sex.
Okay, that's a lot of people actually. I totally understand where you're coming from. But does that mean that's with a partner you've been with for a long time, or someone you've just slept with?
I wouldn't say I had many one-night stands.
Okay.
And I don't...
Recount.
I think it's... No. I'm thinking, because it's usually if it's like a one or like two or like three times thing, I don't know, everything is so exciting and you're not like focused. It's all about hormones and like making out, which I enjoy more. I think when you asked me questions a couple months ago for your...
Yeah, for the video
thing. Yeah, I enjoy like making out and the foreplay more, or like fingering, than an actual like...
I totally I get it. There's something about like the buildup that is so exciting, right? Mm-hmm. I totally get you.
I wouldn't say with just like short-term partners. I think they were like okay already, so they knew what they were doing. They were quite experienced, so I didn't have to communicate.
That's good. You don't have to push their head away.
That was so traumatizing a little. I was like, you just sucked so hard, and it was it's painful. What are you trying to do?
I'm embarrassed for you. Stop it.
Right, and then I think it's actually important when you're not comfortable or you don't like what's happening and you want them to stop or like to move their hand to the side or something else.
You should just direct them.
Change position too. Like some positions are more painful, for example, or like less pleasurable than the others, and it's okay to be like, hey, I'm actually hurting right now. Switch. And it's okay.
Yeah.
For me, I think like years ago when I started to have sex, it was just like endure.
Into what?
Endure.
Oh, like, wow. That's awesome. I mean, I feel like it's the initiative, especially when you're like young, and like it's so exciting to be a doer. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
That's so good. What are your other questions that your listeners normally ask you?
How old was I when I lost my virginity? Do I like anal?
Do you have like an episode where you answer these questions?
No, I usually, that's like on Instagram where
Okay.
I would put the, do you have any questions for me tab? But it's less because I don't encourage that, because that's actually not what I'm focused on.
Yeah.
On my Instagram, I'm not, trying to sex educate or like, I mean, just being myself, I guess, kind of is just to be free and open.
Yeah.
Like that. But it's, unless it calls for it, for example,
Yeah.
there's a certain topic, I was just like, yeah, it's uncalled for, or like,
you also don't want to be so like like the object of male lust, I mean, there are also porn sites for those things. I like how your Instagram is more how do you say, towards wellness and kind of like, I mean, it's sexy without being vulgar, which I like. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question is like, have you had sex with a Filipino? I'm like, guys, come on, I've been in the Philippines for 3 years. What do you think?
What's the answer? We have to get it on the record.
Yes.
Did you have a boyfriend here?
I had. Yeah.
Okay.
2. One
Two
was like
boyfriends.
shitty. Another one was.
Hopefully he listens.
Yeah, I hope not. No, it's just, I would say, another one. I don't know what it was, but there was a period of time for like a month or two, every time I pull up this questionnaire, like ask me a question, a bunch of guys wrote to me, does size matter? I'm very shy because of my size, or like, does it matter to you? Which I never actually answered. So
you never did? You have to give them your opinion. What's your opinion?
Okay, what's your opinion?
For me, I actually feel like size isn't the make or break for me. Although obviously I'm not excited with something super small, but I'm also not super excited with something really big. I like something more on the average, because I like how people know how to use it rather than like just rely on size, because then it can be really painful, right? If it was too big, and you could almost not feel anything if it was too small. And like you said, like it's not always just about penetration. It's also about foreplay and how they stimulate the clitoris and all of that. So I don't think that size matters the most. What about you?
Same. I don't I would actually I like average and like smaller than super big, or like, because it's painful. And what matters to me is the quality, or like if the guy knows what he's doing and he can work around his size with like using, especially like I like what I said, like fingers more than.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you though, like, and you say, especially when a guy knows what he's doing, for example, if with your guy, you're dating a guy and he knows what he's doing, does that also make you think like, okay, he's probably slept with so many girls that he knows exactly, does that ever cross your mind, or is that like, no?
No, because like he can learn in different ways. Although I had like a huge crush on this guy who's actually Filipino, and he said that at the time we were talking or like flirting a little, he said that his body count is 75. I'm like,
oh my gosh, the fact that he even counted for one is like, that's a major turn off. So for all you listeners, fine, if you want to keep a count, keep it secret, because nothing is more of a turn off than a guy who goes home and tallies their next conquest. It's same.
No, right. And then like it's like an achievement, and I was actually more disgusted than turned on, because like I don't know how safe he was, or like what
also what do you expect me to think after you say that? It's like, oh my god, let me be number 74.
Oh my god. Yeah, exactly. Like what I thought was like, I don't want to add to the list.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did.
But that didn't stop me.
Yeah, I was so like super into the guy. So
okay, so maybe your excuse then.
what I meant, like, he knows what he's doing. Like, for example, if size isn't his strongest point,
Yeah.
he knows that, and he figured out a way how to please you without maybe not using it, or without, like, I don't know, maybe sex toys.
Yeah.
If you're into it, or yeah. Do you use any sex toys?
I don't use it with a partner, but I definitely have for myself. It's so much fun because, I mean, it also kind of teaches me what I like. And I used to feel like, why do people have it? Like, I don't crave it. I don't look for it. But then, like, when I finally got my first toy, it's like, wait, this opens up a whole different world. Even just you being by yourself, it's kind of like you feel cheeky. It's a lot of fun. Then you can figure out what you like and when you like it. Yeah, which is really cool, right? What about you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's like such an amazing way to learn more about yourself and what you like. And
Agreed.
because, like, you can be, if you don't have like some body blocks or anything, which you can also like work on, that you learn so much about yourself just being one-on-one with yourself. Yeah. And maybe you can be shy with your partner to say, like, oh, I want to try this, but like, you can try it this first with yourself and see if you like it, and then maybe like
bring it up,
or maybe like leave it up to you only, which is, I think, fine.
I agree. I mean, it's also like, what if in the end you don't like it? So it's a matter of ruling out what you like and what you don't like, and then bringing it up with your partner. I'm not yet there, but I do plan to get there eventually.
Your husband listens to your podcast?
So I always will. At first, I was like, I need to get his consent with the things I say, and then at one time I got into the car and I heard him listening to it, and I was like, oh my god, turn it off! I don't want. He was like, I always listen to it on my way to work, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm cringy at the thought, but he's been supportive, thankfully. Yeah, yeah.
Another, actually, like what you said, another thing that I learned, I was just like shy to talk about my experience if they involve other people and they didn't necessarily give consent to it. But then at the same time, like, maybe I don't have a chance to get consent from them, and then I'm not going to mention their name or something. So like, it's my experience too, and I should have a right to be able to talk about it. Maybe like, for example, if you would talk to your husband about that and he would say, like, I don't want to be a part of it, like, so maybe not mention me.
Yeah.
So that would be okay, right? No, I mean, like, hypothetically.
Yeah.
That was the case.
I agree. It's also like, if it's something specific that it's obviously him, even if I don't mention his name, then I'd rather leave that out. But if it's like, yeah, I remember when I was younger, I recall a story, and obviously I don't have time to call him and be like, is it okay if I tell this? I just leave the name out. But it's also, the point is really of saying the story is to drive a point and just explain, like, what happened to me. I don't really stress on who it was with. Totally agree with you. Like, I don't think you really need consent for those type of stories. Right?
No, I just like felt like, okay, so I've struggled with like the nice guy, nice girl syndrome for like so many years. And
What's
I always
that?
feel
What's
like
that?
It's like, also, a good example of it would be why I had sex with my for the first time, because I thought that I will be considered a bad person if I didn't consent. Like a bad girlfriend. Yeah. So that kind of stuff. So it kind of, you push away your own desires and needs to please other people, or to think like they will love you more. I mean, there's like a deep psychological explanation.
No, that's
to
super valid. Like, and that happens to a lot of people. I totally agree with you. I'm guilty of that as well.
I think it's actually also a big thing in the Philippines, because I would say some people are very judgmental. So how can you be yourself and like freely express what you want and need when you're always afraid that you're going to be judged because of your background or religion, or that can be a part of it. Like, how can I be free to be myself and be accepted at the same time? So that's
definitely
really like
question that's in a lot of people's mind. That's why so many times they just keep to themselves and they're just like, okay, I'll deal with it when I have to. And then you find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh my God, I could have prevented it if I knew. It's such a vicious cycle, right?
Yeah, it's like, in a nutshell, you're betraying yourself to be liked by others, and it's never worth it from what I learned.
People pleasing.
Yeah. So that's something I've worked on, and sometimes it still comes up. So that's important to, in regards to having sex too. Like,
I mean, it's nice to please others, but don't forget yourself. Like you first and foremost, right? Which is really important.
Totally agree. So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So like, what was, how was your journey to like learning more about yourself and your body and what you like and like stuff like that? Was it always that you knew what you wanted, or like
not
you
at
had
all?
To...
Like I think I've always generally been more curious than others. Amongst my friends, I'm always the one kind of pushing people to do things. But then I'm also reluctant because I'm afraid of what people will say. I'm definitely more vocal about things. But for example, like learning how to use a sex toy, I think I was late. I think it's been like, it's just in the past 5 years. It's not something I knew early on, and I had to get comfortable with it. I think I just wanted to get comfortable with it because I what do you say? I think my journey was, I forced myself to get comfortable with it because I wanted people to be comfortable about it. Like when I'd ask other people questions, I'd actually be like, why do you have to react like that? Can you just answer me? But then also I have to respect that, they have their own way of dealing things. So I really just focus on getting comfortable with it myself, learning what it is I like, what I don't like. And until now, I'm still learning. And I think it's a continuous thing, like your journey of self-discovery and what gives you pleasure. And then like what I like now, I might not like in 6 months, right? It's cool. What about you?
Yeah, I would say it's an ongoing journey, and it's super exciting, like learning new things about yourself, or like, your turn-ons that you didn't have before, like any kinks, or when it comes to the body, it's important. Like the most important thing that I learned is that your body never lies, and you should keep grounded and listen to yourself and your body specifically. Like I don't know, put a hand over your chest and like breathe a couple times to. I mean, that doesn't necessarily comes to that doesn't. I'm not talking about sex, but in general, like, for example, if you're in a situation like you're anxious about something, like you just listen to your body and learn how to ground and relax and kind of self-regulate on your own, because that's like always worth it. That's your mental health. That's your physical health. And that too, that was like discovering your body and what I like. I had like a problem with not being able to come.
Okay. That's a super common problem too.
Because I was thinking too much. There were like so many expectations, but I did go to a sexologist, and the first thing she told me, which I find it like I kind of found weird, because she asked me first, like, what do you think of yourself? Like, do you like your body? Do you accept yourself? Like, do you find yourself like, do you get turned on by yourself? Or like, do you like how your body looks like? Or do you, for example, like, do you despise it, or you embarrass, or you have so many insecurities? And back then I was like, I feel fine. Like I can see myself in the mirror and not like get disgusted or like turn away. I like what I saw. So the exercise she gave me to do at home is to stand in front of the mirror, even though sorry, even though I told her that I was comfortable with my body. So the exercise was to stand naked in front of your mirror and just, observe what you think or like what you feel. You can start like touching yourself, like that. So I think it was more about your own reaction to your reflection, to your body. How do you perceive it? And the other one was to pull out a hand mirror and put it towards your vagina and just look into the mirror and do the same thing, and like what thoughts come up, or like how do you feel about it, and like seeing it in your mirror. I was like, this. I tried all that she suggested, but well, for me, personal experience, I was already comfortable, so I was like, this is useless. This is pointless. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel.
Sorry, my dog.
It's okay.
Wait, I'll just quickly put this on mute.
Okay.
All right, sorry. She's trying to get my attention. What's that? I've heard advice like that also in the past. Getting comfortable with how it looks. I don't know the reason for it, but I'm pretty sure there's like, it has to do with like, it's just like accepting yourself. It's great that you accept you're happy with what you have, because not everyone feels that way, right? And I think I don't know how it ties together with your story about not being able to come easily, but I do think I do think that there's so much pressure tied to when you engage in sex, like you have to like come or orgasm, which I think we should remove that pressure, because then it can happen or it can't happen. That's what I was learning. But yeah, you were saying.
I think what my issue was is just I was in my head too much. I was just like thinking, like, am I wet enough, or like, am I, like all those thoughts. And like, I used to have a problem with like, I would take so long to be able to comment. I was like, think about it. Oh my God, like it's going to take another 40 minutes of him like actively trying, and he's going to get exhausted. So I was like, imagine like it's like doing something, right? And I'm thinking about all of that.
You're not present in the moment.
Yes, and not in your body, which I think is an important thing to do when you're having sex, is just to be able to get out of your head and enjoy.
I totally agree. Just be in the moment.
And in your body too. Yeah. Do you have any insecurities about your body?
Oh, definitely. Like I've always been like on the chubbier side. So I like throughout high school, I've never not been on a diet. But then I think it really helped when I got with my husband now, like when we started dating, I think it's the stability, and I don't know what he made me feel. I don't know how the confidence that he gave me or whatever. It's now I've just like accepted it. I'm like, actually, this is my body. Like I love it. And, I just learned to accept it. My whole life, I was always insecure about it. Before I would even do it with the shirt on, because I'd be so shy. But yeah, that's why I see what your sexologist, I could see what she was thinking when she was saying like, you have to look in the mirror and just embrace your flaws. There's definitely a psychological effect to that. And I just want to be guided through the process, and not just be staring into the mirror and like, okay, what am I supposed to think? Right.
Yeah. No, I think it's just like apologies for disregarding this exercise just because it didn't help me, because that wasn't my case. But I think it is a great exercise actually to be able to,
I'm sure, right? I just don't know what it would be. I mean, it would be cool if she explained like what, right? Did she explain it to you?
No, not really. She just said that stand in front of the mirror, look at yourself and see what you think. But that's a part of therapy. Like you actually, I like when things are being explained to me. That's what I try to do in my work as well. Yeah. And to me, it like helps. Why am I doing it? Like what's supposed to happen?
The purpose.
So like, for example, if she would explain but that's how it works for me. She would explain, like, sometimes, like, people don't accept themselves, or, it's hard for them to embrace their body. So the exercise helps you to note what you think and feel about yourself.
Yeah.
Just to notice. You don't have to, like, be judgmental or, I don't know, say bad words about your body because like, you're not this, or like not enough for this, or like not good enough. But that's, kind of a basis of meditation. You observe the thoughts and you don't do anything with them. You just like
let it float.
Get curious, like what comes up, and then it might give you an answer. So with that exercise, you might hear some very critical, judgmental voice who might not even be yours. Or like, for example, things we hear from our parents sometimes, like, oh, you're so chubby, look at your cheeks. And then you get insecure about your cheeks, for example.
That's very Filipino. Filipinos like always say that. I totally get you.
So that, and then you become insecure. For me, I think it was always my tummy. I'll be like, I have to have a perfect.
That's crazy. Your body's so nice. So like you can, but you know what? Bella Hadid came out recently with like this saying, like I can imagine even the most beautiful women have those insecurities, and that's kind of in a scary way, like comforting, right? It's like, okay, no one ever feels that they're perfect, right? So that's something people also should keep in mind. It helps.
I used to be chubbier. So
you used to be?
Yeah. The teenager cheeks. And
yeah. Oh my gosh, I can imagine. Although there are also very beautiful women that are chubby, right?
Yeah, right. That's like, I don't see the issue with...
it's just your own personal preference.
Yes. No, I mean, like, it's your own actually perception of yourself. I don't see that if you love your body, you will love it no matter what, right?
I agree.
I agree.
Although it's hard. I mean, it's also easier said than done, because I'm like, I want to be all about body love, but also when I'm feeling overweight, I'm like, I don't feel sexy,
But I think there's a lot of pressure coming from social media and then the beauty standards
100%.
to like have to have like round butt and then like perfect abs and bigger boobs, and I'm like, just, everyone is beautiful in their own way when they're, have you noticed? I don't know, like how people carry themselves and like how confident they are, even if they're not like the best looking, but you see like, damn, he's into himself in a good way.
I mean, there's also a fine line between guys who are like confident but sexy, or confident but like annoying, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, relax. Delusional. That's so funny.
I think it's so important to learn what you like and like what your body craves, and just stop being judgmental towards it.
Okay.
It's like, I can't imagine having any particular kinks, for example, and being ashamed of it to bring it up to anyone, but maybe like on a secret Twitter account and stuff, social media, right? And like, you like it, and then you're so scared of admitting it to others, and then your partner, right? For example, there are people who are into feet, and people usually laugh at them.
Those fetishes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people usually laugh at them like, oh, what's so sexy about feet? But that's like, I don't know. It's like what I'm into, or not personally, but a person might be into like specific kinks and things that you would think are bizarre, but people find it attractive and sexual. And it's just, again, so much pressure into like, oh, you're like weird, or something's wrong with you, or I don't know. I think people should be able to experience their personal, preferences.
I agree.
Freely. Yeah. 100%. But then also it depends on the setting, right? If you bring up that you're into, I don't know, rope play or like foot fetishes to your like super conservative religious family, that might be the best.
I know, it's context too. You have to read the room.
Yeah. Spice up the Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Work your way towards.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Oh, okay.
That was fun.
One more question.
Okay.
One more question. How would you say like your libido is like? How often are you horny?
So I was reading something that says like everyone has different libido. For example, like when people are on the pill, their sex drive goes down. When they're a few months pregnant, they're super horny. I think I'd say like, so I've been with my husband like 6 years, maybe twice a week. I think which I think for some that's a lot. And there are times we do it once a week, which is totally fine with me also. But that's another thing I don't want to put pressure. I don't like putting pressure on. Like, thankfully, we're on the same page. It's rarely is it like he wants and I'm like lazy or the other way around. But yeah, I think when there's also a lot of people who like, are you guys sexually active? How often do you do it? Stuff like that. It's always something that's being asked, actually. That's why I also want to make it like clear, at least maybe, I don't know if you feel the same way, like for your listeners, like you shouldn't put any pressure to that. And obviously if you're doing it like once a year with your partner or once every like 3-4 months, like it's time for you to communicate if you want to do it more. Right. But, there shouldn't be too much pressure, but I do think, we're like at a healthy amount right now. At the same time, I've talked to a lot of friends who have been with partners for say 10 plus years, and they say it really changes. So it's also something that me and my husband talk about. Like, when that time comes, we just make sure we talk about how we feel about it. Not like harbor, like, oh, we're not doing it anymore. He's not excited about me. So yeah. What about you? Do you have a boyfriend right now or no?
No.
No, not. Okay.
So, notice that I asked you how often do you get horny? Doesn't mean that how often do you have sex?
Oh, there I am answering that right away. I think I would say it's around the same time because every time I do, I probably every time I do it's when I initiate. So that's like around twice a week, especially when I'm busy. When I'm not busy, it happens more often. Like when I don't have to get up out of bed and do something right away, then I'm distracted. But when I have nothing, and like, especially if I have like vivid dreams that are like, like sexual, definitely I wake up and I'm like, and if he's not there, then I'll be like, okay, maybe get the toy.
Who's here?
Who's here? Anyone? Just kidding.
Yeah. I would say, I don't know, where do you draw the line of what's normal and like what's the normal libido? I think, right? Because I would think, I always thought that I had like very low libido because I very rarely want it or like get horny. But then at the same time, again, like once I went to the OB-GYN and I expressed my concern to like, I think maybe like I don't want it as much as my boyfriend at the time wanted, right? So maybe I need to check on like hormone level.
Okay.
Like stuff like that. And she's like, are you okay with your like state of things? Like, are you okay with not wanting to have sex or like not being horny this much? I'm like, yeah. And she said like, you don't need to take any, tests or like take any pills if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Especially, you shouldn't, I don't know, feel pressured to do something with your body when your partner is hornier than you are or like he wants to have more sex than you do. And you have to like alter your body. But then again, it depends. And then maybe I think through communication, you can figure something out because like, it's not just, penetration. There's so many ways to play.
Yeah.
Adult play, your episode is called, right? So like it doesn't have to be, it can be sexual, but it doesn't have to be like penetrative or like,
I agree.
Give your partner a hand job.
And it's also fun, like just doing it in secret, things that just are arousing but not necessarily actually engaging. I totally get you.
Yeah, so I would say, how often do I get horny? Probably the same, like 2 times a week. It's like it's usually when I'm like bored and have nothing to do. I'm like,
or a fun movie. A movie.
Yeah. Or like I scroll through Twitter and there's like usually a lot of boobs and stuff, and I'm like,
I totally get you. Oh my god, that's so funny.
So it's like a visual kind of stimulation, or like out of boredom. But yeah. That was fun.
That was so much fun. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm going to make sure to listen to your episodes.
Thank you.
Do you edit them, or is it like the whole conversation? What is it like?
I'll see how it is, but usually it's the full length.
Cool.
Sometimes, like when people don't get comfortable with what they just said, they can tell me, and then they cut it out.
Nice. Yeah. That's cool. Well, I give consent to everything I said, I think. Yeah.
I can send it to you
No, it's no problem. I think but I will listen for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
try
Angie.
to listen to other episodes of your podcast.
Yes,
you can invite me too.
Yes, for sure. Well, so I'm gonna speak with my sister. I want to listen to your other episodes too.
Okay, I'll send you a link. Yeah, it's on YouTube now only.
Oh, cool! So it's videos.
Yes, but I'm gonna work on Spotify.
Cool. All right.
So hopefully,
thank you so much, Angie. Bye. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Wait.
Bye.
Let me finish. Let me wrap it up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So thank you, Ava. Thank you guys for listening. Let me know if you have any questions about to my guest, Ava. You can find her at, do you want to promote your Instagram?
Sure. My Instagram is at Ava Diaz Daza. So that's AVADIAZ DAZA. And if you guys also want to listen into our podcast, it's called At the Sexy Time Podcast. Maybe we could do a cross promotion. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Angie.
Ava is working on something important.
Yes.
In regards to
the whole sexual wellness field. I mean, I can't talk about it yet because it's not yet out, but I'm definitely going to keep you on the loop once that's ready.
Yes. Guys, get excited. We'll let you know once it's ready.
Thank you. And thank you for the support. I'll definitely send over some when we launch.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and let us know about your personal experiences. How do you like it? How often do you like it? Any stigma or like growing up? Anything you want to add
Yes.
to the podcast? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Angie.